Saudi Arabia arrests the king's brother and other royals accused of plotting against the crown prince. Is Mohammed bin Salman consolidating his power? And what are the implications of this latest purge against dissent? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Jonah. Saudi Arabia's crown prince has had a controversial rise to power. In just 3 years, Mohammed bin Salman has silenced nearly all voices of dissent at home. Critics have been jailed, even killed, and he appears to be tightening his grip on power even further. Media reports suggest at least 20 princes, officials and army officers have been arrested in the kingdom's latest purge. They include former Crown Prince Mohammed bin Nayef. Here he is on the right after he was removed as heir to the throne in 2017. But the most high-profile arrest is the king's last surviving full brother, Prince Ahmed bin Abdulaziz. The royals have been accused of plotting to overthrow the crown prince. But the Saudi government hasn't officially responded to the reports. In 2018, Prince Ahmed returned to the kingdom just weeks after he appeared to criticise the Saudi leadership during a protest against the Saudi-UAE war in Yemen.
What does the whole of the Al Saud family have to do with this? There are certain individuals responsible: the king, the crown prince, and others in the state.
Well, Mohammed bin Salman has pushed through a series of controversial policies and decisions since he became crown prince. He launched what he called an anti-corruption purge in 2017, detaining dozens of princes and business leaders at the Ritz-Carlton in Riyadh. Many were freed after turning over large parts of their wealth. The crown prince also led crackdowns on clerics, bloggers, journalists and women's rights activists. He's come under international criticism for Saudi Arabia's role in the devastating war in Yemen. And Mohammed bin Salman is also believed to have ordered the killing of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi, and he's denied the conclusions of US intelligence agencies and an independent UN report on the murder. Right, let's get started and bring in our panel. Here in the studio in London, we've got Roxane Farmanfamaian, a lecturer on Middle East politics at the University of Cambridge. Joining us on Skype, also from London, David Hearst, editor-in-chief of the online publication Middle East Eye. And in Washington, D.C., Ali Al-Ahmed, director of the Gulf Affairs Institute and a former Saudi political prisoner. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for being with us. Now, the full extent of what's going on here may not yet be clear, of course, but let's begin by delving into what's behind this latest wave of arrests. And I'll turn first to you, David Hearst, if I may. Is Mohammed bin Salman, MBS as he's more commonly known, of course, on the verge of seizing full power in Saudi Arabia?
I think he is, yes. There are indications that he is. I think that he wants to finish the job that was started when he ousted his elder cousin, Mohammed bin Nayef, from the post of Crown Prince. I think things have been going badly for him ever since. If you remember, back in those days, the Crown Prince was the new Crown Prince was at the height of his popularity. He was a fresh young thing who's coming in, blowing in a new wave of reform. Even people like my late friend Jamal Khashoggi thought that he was the new broom that was needed back in those days. Since then, he's lost a lot of his popularity. Virtually nothing has gone right for him, certainly not the war in Yemen, not the IPO of Aramco. The oil price has gone down, and now you've got coronavirus as well, and restricting or cutting Umrah and possibly also the Hajj too. So he's under a lot of pressure, and I think he feels he needs to finish the job.
And so the need to crack down. Roxane, let me bring you in here. What is the real threat to MBS? Is it a reputational threat, essentially, as David was outlining there, or is there more to it?
Well, certainly I agree that many of his actions have not gone well. And one of the issues is which allies he actually has in the court. And those seem to be relatively thin on the ground. And so his approach has been to be heavy-handed, to establish his position and to really strong-arm members of the family particularly. And this is extremely unusual for the Saudi court and the family. They tend to be inclusive and secretive and supportive. And he has made it clear that no one is immune from his sword, if you will.
Let me bring in Ali Ahmed. Is there any question, do you think, of an actual plot afoot against MBS, a coup in the making, or is this a preemptive strike?
It is both. There was planning. There was some plot. How far it went, it's not clear yet. But we know, as back in September, when the personal bodyguard of the king was supposedly killed in a shootout, that gave us a hint of what was, to part of that plot. Mr. Al-Fagham was in contact with some members of the ruling family about some plot that might have been involved the killing of MBS, in the court, because Mr. Al-Fagham had that access, and Mr. Bin Nayef has supporters and one of his aides outside the country. I think Mr. David's publication will have something on it this week. So there is something. How large, how far it has went, we don't know yet. But what we know is these members of the ruling family were sidelined. We know one of those people who were arrested, Nayef bin Ahmed, is a military pilot, and he had connections in Washington. And we know that people in Washington, especially in the Democratic side of things, in the CIA, former CIA director, for example, John Brennan, was supportive of bringing back Mohammed bin Nayef to power. So all of these factors contributed to Mohammed bin Salman's decision to charge them with treason, which means that some of these people at least will be executed. Ahmed, the uncle, I believe he has nothing to do with this. It's just a precautionary arrest because his son may have been involved in it.
Well, since you mentioned Prince Ahmed and his son, I mean, a plot, perhaps, as you suggest there, nascent or otherwise, but perhaps enough to provoke fear and paranoia. He's going substantially further than he's gone before. David talked about the incidents of 2017 when hundreds of top-level figures in the kingdom were gathered together in the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, including senior royals. Money was taken from them. They were required to pledge their loyalty and obedience to MBS. But at that time, Prince Nayef and his son were spared. They were thought to have cover because of King Salman. What does it say that essentially no one now has any cover?
That's part of the plan, in fact, that to create a new system based on what we call a vertical process, where the rule goes from father to son, and that will start with Mohammed bin Salman. Now his father is giving him the throne, and then he will do that to his own son. So in order to achieve that, they need to clean house and strip down the monarchy to a bare minimum, basically to what people call a Salman ruling family, not Al Saud. And we've seen that happen, for example, in Jordan in '99. So we have basically a trend to ensure power is concentrated, to ensure there is no conflict. When you in the 80s and somewhat in the 70s, where power was distributed in different camps of the ruling family, and you had what we call power centers. Now there is only a power center, one power center. That's Mohammed bin Salman, that has control of the military, security, the economy, and the royal court.
But yet the reality is, of course, King Salman is still there. He is the king. Let me bring in Roxane. There's a suggestion that he signed off on these arrests, including the arrest of his only surviving full brother. He's 84 years old, not in the best of health. What does this say about what if anything, remains of his hold on power?
Well, that's always been the question. He clearly is suffering from dementia. Very often it's noted in the press that he was doing better at the time that he signed off on any given decree. So it's very difficult to know. And this kind of, the timing of this is certainly one of the issues that is being discussed. Is it because his health is failing considerably more? The fact that he's been shown on television during the appointment of ambassadors over the last couple of days indicates he's still alive. But the question is that is he getting rapidly worse in a way that we don't know? Or was this perhaps simply very good timing on MBS's part? You know, coronavirus has more or less shut the borders of Saudi. There are not any pilgrimages in action. The clerics are off the scene for the moment as a result. It may have been simply a very good moment for him to hit.
David, what do you make of that? King Salman as a sort of figurehead monarch, all power now to MBS.
Yes, I would agree with that. Firstly, there are two questions about the king himself. One is that we really don't know what his actual state of dementia is. We're guessing. There are various indications. He couldn't deliver a speech in Sharm el-Sheikh some time ago, or he asked his aide whether he'd actually started a speech when he'd done the first paragraph. There are other indications when he talked to President Erdogan. I'm told that, and that was immediately after Khashoggi's murder, that he couldn't hold a conversation. He stuck to a script. However, there are other indications that he talks freely with the Kuwaitis. So we have contrasting and evidence about his actual state of mind. There's also a question of how free he actually is. His son is an extremely ruthless, violent and dangerous person without any scruples or morals, who has already imprisoned his mother, who has already ordered the deaths of other members of the royal family and ordered their mistreatment and torture. So he's literally capable of doing anything. And the question is, to what extent his father is not a prisoner in his own palace. I know, for instance, his father likes to play a special game of cards. And he has his mates come to the palace. One of them was refused entry, and King Salman told him, why aren't you here? Why aren't you playing our game of cards? And he said, well, I tried to get through the gates, but I wasn't allowed to. His father said, I'll deal with that. The next time he turned up, the following week, he was again refused. And they since have not played cards together. This is an indication of the fact that King Salman is not free to welcome even his own visitors.
All of which begs the question, David. I mean, how much power does Mohammed bin Salman need in order to feel secure? As Ali Al-Ahmed was saying, he already controls the principal levers of power, the military, the intelligence services, the elite National Guard. He's now got all the royalty under his thumb. His own father is a prisoner in his own kingdom, as you suggest. How much does he need to feel secure?
Well, he needs the crown. He needs to be king. The question is the circumstances now in which he is going to become king and when he does it. These circumstances are the latest purge, and this is really quite different from the other steps he's taken. This is quite a risky step or a reckless step, depending on your point of view. It's much more important, in my view, than the previous purge or even than the murder of Khashoggi.
Ali, let me bring in Ali there. With your insights, what do you imagine the atmosphere is right now within the upper echelons of the kingdom, the royal family, and all the other sort of circles of power as a result of these events?
I think that some of them are angry. I know at least of one who was basically very angry and sent somebody, I know, a message saying that I don't care. So there is that tension. But, you know, you realize that one thing, that King Salman, in fact, I know this, King Salman is in generally good health for his age. He does have early onset of dementia. He's taking good medication. But saying that, the man is not able to do much for himself even. You know, he needs help with everything, even putting his clothes on. So he doesn't have power. He is just, basically a painting on the wall, and MBS controls everything. So if MBS wanted to get even off his father, he could do it in a day. There is no, he chooses not to do it because he's already ruling. He's doing this, although I would say maybe over 50% of the ruling family hates him being in power because he has taken away much of their wealth, put them under house arrest or under close monitoring, and that's natural. So, but the ruling family is violent to each other is nothing new. Let's just remember that King Faisal was killed by his own nephew. King Saud was overthrown by his brothers, and King Faisal tried to assassinate King Saud, and King Abdulaziz killed his own full brother. So this is a family that's not foreign to violence within itself. This is about government, about rule power. So things will happen, and I believe that MBS cannot afford to have Mohammed bin Nayef, who has supporters in Washington, be free and even alive.
I'll bring that up in a moment. What will ordinary Saudis be making of this, do you think, Ali?
I think many Saudis are happy that basically they say, these people, we hate both sides, so let them duke it out, and they will quietly be jubilant if anybody goes down. It's just because it's a natural, when you have a despotic regime, people are happy when the despots fight. So it's a natural reaction.
You mentioned Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Roxane, let me bring you in here to talk about, bin Nayef rather, to talk about the international reaction. He's a former interior minister close to US intelligence services, well known abroad. You've also got Saudi Arabia now very much under scrutiny for its role in Yemen, the ruinous war there, ruinous for Yemen, that is, that goes on and on and on. The spotlight, of course, still very much on the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, which many people believe was ordered by Mohammed bin Salman. How does he explain away what's going on here to his international allies? Do they care? Do they ask questions? What does he say?
Well, his choice of supporters would, in fact, I would imagine, think that this kind of activity, this being a bruiser, is something to be admired. And
you're talking about the Trump administration.
So certainly the Trump administration, but he likewise has support very unusually since he took power in other quarters in the Middle East, including Israel. And it has been very clear that when he's shown up at the G20, he has good relations with Modi. He has certainly got relationships with others who are known to value this kind of decisiveness, this kind of ruthlessness as a form of taking control. Inclusivity is no longer the kind of value that it used to be. So the problems in Yemen, the problems that he's faced with some of the other scandalous outcomes from relationship, for example, when he tried to kidnap, or was thought to have tried to kidnap, the Prime Minister of Lebanon. Many of his endeavors have not turned out well, but it really, the question is whether he learns from that or whether they're important at all. He's more a duck that just simply sees the water come off his back and he proceeds along the same way. And I would agree, this is an even more ruthless, more important step than we've seen so far.
David, let me ask you, in this age of rising populism with Saudi Arabia's massive oil wealth, with the allies that Mohammed bin Salman has chosen, are there lessons for him to learn? Would he care to learn them? Or is this an age of impunity for somebody like the young Crown Prince?
It's an age of impunity. I think this is driven fundamentally for local reasons or his own reasons. It's interesting, however, that one of the reasons given for the latest round of arrests, and it was given to Reuters by what they called a regional source, and I assume that was an Emirati source, I'm not certain, but was that MBS had detected that Prince Ahmed had had discussions with the Americans and others, and they were plotting a coup. This is a very interesting statement because America, as we all know, is the chief ally of the kingdom. So the Americans, which Americans? I do know from Prince Ahmed's inner circle when he was still in London and before he left that he was very hesitant about leaving and returning back to the kingdom, and even considered self-exile, simply because of the question of his possible arrest, because he was such an open critic of bin Salman. And I was told on good authority that he'd received assurances from MI6 and the CIA on his return that he would not be arrested. This is exactly what has happened now. So when we talk about the Americans, we're not necessarily talking about the White House or Pompeo. We are possibly talking about the CIA or the Pentagon, both of whom are antagonistic towards MBS, and they still support bin Nayef.
Ali Ahmed, you're nodding away enthusiastically there. Is there anything they can do about it? They may be antagonistic, US intelligence services, but what can they do?
I think if you bet your horses on the Americans, you will lose, because we have a picture of the now U.S. Secretary Pompeo giving the George Tenet award to Mohammed bin Nayef just a few years ago. And now he's not saying anything about the arrest and possible execution of the same guy he gave the award to. So in terms of Ahmed has no real shot. He never had a real shot at the throne. He is the brother of the king. He's been very negative, talking openly about MBS, and it just happened yesterday. I was talking to somebody who talked to Ahmed personally, and he told him not to go. And this is what Ahmed told my friend, that he says, "I do not, I don't worry about this idiot," he meaning MBS. I think Ahmed returned because he does not have ambition. And he's arrested, in my view, because it's just a precautionary. He's not part of this supposed plot. It's his son who is involved as a pilot. So the idea here is that MBS has the support of the United States, of the Trump administration, has the support of the UK government, has the support of the Egyptian government, the UAE, and these are powerful countries that can ensure his hold on power. Okay. The Americans who are talking to these to Mohammed bin Nayef are people who are former CIA, like John Brennan and others who were trying to get back MBN to power, especially if Trump loses the election. Okay. And that's, I think, one of the reasons that drove MBS to take action very quickly. So
the suggestion is that a younger generation in the upper echelons is pushing back, essentially, at MBS's failure to produce the reforms, to infuse the new blood that he sort of promised to do when he came to prominence in 2017. Exactly. Has he any chance of having his reputation restored, do you think, Roxane? Well, certainly on that basis, I think not. But I think it's a telling point that he was underestimated. And I think he's showing that that was a mistake, that he should not have been underestimated. He is approaching it in a very different way, a much harsher and more aggressive way. But he's certainly establishing his position, and he is silencing his critics inside. I wouldn't be surprised if there's quite an exodus by a number of the members of the Saudi family at this point in the winnowing down of the power, and the fear, I would imagine, in the family would be running high at this point. There's absolutely no escape. So they will be leaving, and he should certainly be respected for what he has achieved, even though it's not at all what we anticipated he could and would have done had he been a different type of character. Well, we're going to leave it there. Thanks to all our guests, Roxane Farmanfamaian, David Hearst, and Ali Al-Ahmed. And thank you, too, for watching at home. You can see the programme again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. And for further discussion, go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/ AJ Inside Story. And you can also join the conversation on Twitter, of course. Our handle is @AJI Inside Story. From me now, Jonah Hull, and the whole team here in London and Doha, bye for now.